Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on our YouTube account and we're going to be breaking down the October tier list. But before we get into it, we're going to be looking at one hero that is not going to be included in the tier list, and that is Kragar. Now, overall with this hero, hasn't even been out a week at this point. We don't know where exactly he's being used. He was utilized a little bit in the treasure scramble, but not really anywhere else at this point. Don't know if he is going to be a hero that's going to be higher in the tier list, or exactly where he's going to fall. In addition, we had Rando that was actually announced today. Haven't even tested him out to see where that support Graveborn hero is. So those are two that are not included. So let's hop over, break down this tier list, and take a look at it. All right, guys, so here we are looking at our October tier list, and you can see there are a couple of heroes that did change a couple spots. Want to run through this, make sure you know exactly who we're building. Now, when you think of the build and how you're building these and really where you're building these heroes, this is based on utility. Now, of course, a lot of damage dealers, the higher that you build them, the better they're going to perform because they are very, very dependent on stats. So let's go ahead, start in our top left with our SSS tier. These are the absolute priority heroes within AFK Arena. If you have a question on who you need to build or when you need to build them, these are, again, the highest priority heroes that we have. First one, of course, starting with Liberta, still not dethroned. This is still the hero being used everywhere. Every single iteration, including PvP aspects, including Curse Realm Nightmare Corridor, is being used everywhere. And of course, the bigger build that you are building this hero out, the better he is performing, because again, he is very dependent on stats, which is the exact same with the Awakened version of Athelia. It is a hero that is very dependent on stats, so the bigger that you build her out, the better she is going to perform within a multitude of game modes. And even when you think of the off-game modes, when you think of tower progression, when you think of, a lot of the Temple Rift, the Awakened version of Athelia and Liberta are the ones that are going to be the driving force in a lot of the different content. Then we have Lucilla. Now, of course, very strongly complements Liberta. Very similar to what we've seen with Albedo once upon a time. Lucilla does incredibly well keeping the dynamic duo alive, and that's really the big thing. Does require, again, a little bit of a build out. I believe it is a 60 engraving on Lucilla to get the functionality of keeping both of them alive. But again, when you start looking at PvP, absolutely dominating, and they do run together in a ton of different formations. Now, looking at our first Draconic hero, it is Lan. When you think of Lan, this is a hero as a support hero that can be put kind of in any single formation, going to do exceptionally well within the formation, even buff up a lot of the formation. Utility-wise, definitely a very, very strong hero. There's not a place in AFK Arena that they're not being used, which is the same with Demia. Now, thinking of Demia, it is really about the cheat death. When she is running on Mahira's collection, it does work incredibly well. She has the ability to keep the team alive. And then, of course, that collection specifically keeps her alive, so you can keep up everybody within the team when they normally should be dead. She can still keep them alive, meaning the utility for this hero goes through the roof. Also provides some buffing, also provides some damage, which is really cool with her. Now, you'll notice in here, the first and breaking in, guys, is Aurelia. Now, this hero is the Harvest hero and overall very, very high utility in every part. When we see every iteration of the Nightmare Corridor and also the Curse Realm, she has been very present. Even looking at the two-team formation when you start in the Treasure Scramble, she is being used within those formations as well. We knew, and really after the first iteration, that she was going to be within the first couple Celestial Hypos that really need to be built, and absolutely she is. Even a lot of heroes are prioritizing her over Lavatoon or even over Demia just because of the effectiveness, which again, thinking of this very top tier, the SSS tier, these are the heroes that you want to build and really, really build to a big level that gets the effectiveness, that gets the skills and abilities there, which of course Lavatoon is still here. Another one, formation absolutely dominates in formations. And you'll also notice on this top one, we have two Awakened heroes. We have a Draconic hero. The rest of them are Celestial and Hypos. This is kind of the build of the heroes, and really the thought behind the heroes is the more expensive or the rarity of the heroes increase, we do see a lot more utility out of them. And of course, to close this out is Leica. Now, with her shielding ability coming into battle, with the delay coming into battle, with the ability to do a lot of damage, still used in a ton of content. And the interesting thing also with her is there's not very many heroes that do and really perform the way that she does coming into formations, which is the reason why it makes her very, very important, especially looking for a lot of content. Then we get into our second rank. This is the SS tier. Now, of course, these are going to be a majority of heroes that are either one, a primary damage dealer in a formation, or two, going to be supporting some of those heroes in that SSS tier. Now, of course, we have Gavison here, another very strong hero. Even though he's a mage, does a little bit of damage, provides a big support within the content itself. So again, when you think of Gavis, we see a lot of times run with Liberta. We see a lot of different formations run with Gavis. Even looking at the Awakened version of Belinda being run in there, we've seen it with the Awakened version of Lucius being run in there. Utility of the hero, very, very high in different formations. Then we have Rimuru. Rimuru still hanging around in this top tier. Amelia for the instant crowd control does exceptionally well with the energy regeneration with that crowd control that she can provide. And she is also being paired with the Awakened version of Lucius, doing incredibly well within formations because you have the ability to insta crowd control, meaning the survivability issues that we do see with Lucius are a little bit lower. Then we have Jerome. This is the first hero that is of the core 4 factions. So of course, this is a light bearer. When you think of the buffing, exceptionally well, does exceptionally well. Then when you couple on, if you put this hero with a light bearer, so if it's going with Belinda, if it's going with Lucius, does even better because they can buff much, much higher because of the light bearers that he buffs. I believe it's a 30% bonus. Does exceptionally well. The Awakened version of Belinda still kind of dominating when it comes to burst damage. She does very well. Second, really common core hero, Ivan. Ivan is a Greyborn support hero, which of course, utility, when you start looking at some of your big damage dealers, Ivan can send their damage through the roof, which is the exact same what Palmer does. When you look at the ability to amplify the damage, also survivability. With Palmer, he provides crit damage and also crit damage amplification. So you can get those really high numbers even higher by having this hero. Now we do have Aethys in here. He is a tried and true tank. Honestly, when you think of anyone that you need to crowd control, he is really a very strong go-to. He can lock down entire formations. And of course, this will allow the survivability of some of our squishier tanks and some of our squishier damage dealers to do exceptionally well. Rem still holding out in the formation, doing a lot of damage. Even looking Naruko still here again, thinking of another very solid tank for the Maulers. Naruko is an absolute priority. Now down in the second row, we do have Shuna in here. And you'll also notice that the Awakened version of Shamira did drop out of that top tier. So is a little bit lower again based on utility. Not seeing her used as much as we traditionally did. And really, this is probably the place where she's going to stay until and if we continue to get new heroes, which we know are coming. We don't know with the early release of Randall what is going to happen if they're doing another collaboration, if they're doing another dimensional hero. But we got a hero up on Tuesday. Up on the test server, we have another hero. So they literally put this hero out like, what, 10 days early, 12 days early. So it is super, super fast for them to do another release. And usually they do it to align with the storyline that's going to be coming out, which could be the Greyborn Awakened hero. So we might actually see Randall drop and then see the Greyborn Awakened hero drop right below it or right behind it just to do the same. And of course, we've seen kind of similar with Ivan and the Awakened version of Shamira. Then we have the Awakened version of Lucius. This is a hero that performs exceptionally well, but the caveat with him is does require a very, very big build out for this hero to do exceptionally well. It takes a big, big build out. I'm talking, I believe we took him to like a 76 or a 78 engraving. Very, very big build out, very dependent on stats because of the SP effect that he does have. Now, of course, Sophia, when it comes to the Maulers, absolutely dominating. When you look at a hero that is needed within the towers, this is one by far without a doubt. Then we have Eugene in here, again, still seeing a little bit of utility in a couple different places. Being used kind of not only as a damage dealer, but somewhat as a support kind of pseudo damage dealer in a couple formations. Being able to bring the magical pierce. And that is the biggest thing with this, is if you're putting a hero like the Awakened version of Belinda in here, with Eugene, you can actually have Eugene increase the magical pierce on the enemy, allowing Belinda to do more damage is exactly what's happening with this hero. So again, it might not play the best in slot damage dealer, but can amplify the damage that we're seeing on other heroes. Now, Gwen is another rock star, requires at least a very, very bare minimum, a 30960, so fully built for this hero. If you don't have the engraving on Gwen, the hero does not do damage. And we tried that, kind of tested, tried and true. We seen within the game modes that she was doing about 3 billion damage. Once we put the engraving on it, it took it up to about 16 billion. So literally 5x, 6x the damage that she was doing just by putting the engraving on there. Absolutely a requirement. Now, Misha is in here. Misha, of course, a very strong buffer for the Wilders, doing exceptionally. And again, formation-wise, being used in a ton of different places. The Awakened version of Solus, another one that doesn't really do, there's not a lot of heroes that do exactly what she does with the ability to do damage, but also providing the survivability aspect with her ultimate abilities. Trishia, personally, I think should be a little bit lower, but when you start looking at substitute heroes, does very well. And then you can see the Awakened version of Iran has actually been making a lot more progression. First time we did this, or last time we did our tier list, put him in the A list, and now he's all the way up to SS tier. And we are starting to see a lot more utility with him. And of course, he is being run with Ulna. So where traditionally we had the Ulna or the Ulna combination with Rem, now it seems the majority of the formations is the Ulna combination with the Awakened version of Iran. Again, it's interesting to see when you think of Lucius, when you think of Iran, when you think of Antandra, all three of those Awakened heroes do have a very high probability and a really high they can't take any damage. They fold over pretty quick, but if you can get them rolling, if you can get support behind them, if you can get them to survive, they do exceptionally well in a ton of different content. Looking down at our S tier, we do have Vathiel in here. Then we have Adrian Elise, again, requires a pretty big build out with the plus 40 signature item. Hildwyn is another kind of pseudo mage. So even though he's a mage, does a little bit of damage, but primarily used as a defensive kind of mage within a couple formations. The Awakened version of Baden, very first season, still holding on a little bit. We're still seeing this hero being and really holding on a little bit, waiting to see exactly what the third iteration or the next Awakened Graveborn is going to be. Now, you'll also notice Nyla coming down the tier list just a little bit. Some of the formations that she was utilized in, we're not seeing as much of the utility in there. And it seems like with some more of the support that we're getting released, and it's pretty interesting because once she starts coming down the tier list, they do add her to the Dragonspire to add her in there as a free hero. But of course, if you're looking, do not buy her out of there. It is not worth it. Cameras, of course, crowd control buffer. Kelton, one of the very few, and even looking here, we don't have a ton of hypos that are really high damage dealers. We had Ogath, he kind of fell down the tier list. We're starting to see the exact same thing with Kelton, where he kind of falls in tower-wise best in slot. But of course, I feel like in the next probably 3 to 6 hero iterations, a lot of these heroes will continue going down the tier list like we traditionally see them. Now, the Awakened version of Antandra is still holding on in the S tier, and then we have Villanelle in here as a hero that can provide some buffs and also the energy disintegration. Villanelle is a hero you do not absolutely want to overlook when it comes to the Mauler Tower. Does exceptionally well. Rosline as the Amplify ultimate ability, and then Ulna, of course, for the immunity in there. Rain as a really big buffer. Lady Simona still run in a couple formations, especially when it looks at the Awakened version of Shamira. And of course, when you start thinking of some of these heroes, they're falling into the tier list because they are the strongest substitute heroes, where let's say you're a player that doesn't have all of these Awakened heroes built. These are going to be your very, very strong substitutes, which are, I mean, a little bit lesser, but kind of on par with what we're seeing with some of the support heroes. Rowan is in here. We have Mortis in here for the buffs. Scarlet still huge with the burst damage. Same with Iran, burst damage, very, very strong. Matria does fall down here, but again, when you think of future releases, when we think of going into next year, Matria's utility probably going to come down a little bit more as we continue to see her used a little less. Short of the tower, not really a ton of utility. Same with Silas. If you have him as a very cheap build buffer, he can work pretty well with not only buffing the attack rating, having the immunity, and then also the healing aspect. When we start looking at the A tier, we have the twins that are in here again. Utility-wise, we're seeing them kind of here and there. Even Melion's coming down quite a bit within the tier list. Used to be up in the S, now in the A. And honestly, when you start looking really in this A tier list and above, those are the heroes you want to build. Those are going to be the priority, because even when we're thinking of, let's say, shop heroes, for instance, Mulan is still in here. We have Joan that is still in here. Robin Hood is still in here. Merlin is still in here. Some of these heroes, again, play kind of that substitute where if I don't have all of the support heroes built, these are going to be the heroes that you use. These are going to be the substitutes in a lot of different places. And if you remember the Treasure Scramble tier list from the AFK guys, that's exactly what it is. We're seeing, again, these heroes are either one, kind of in niche formations used in a few different places, or two, these are the heroes that are really, really big in the substitutes. Even looking, if you don't have a Kelthon, a lot of players are running Olgath. Even looking at crowd control, Kinesis and Rook, very, very good in place of if you don't have Aethys built in the entirety. But even looking at Braun, kind of niche at this point. Vika, even again, kind of a niche formation hero within that piece. So looking at the lower tier list, looking at our B tier, not going to go through all of the heroes in here, hasn't really changed much. When you start looking at these lower tiers, you'll notice some of the Draconic heroes down here a little bit more, and you'll also notice some of the Awakened heroes like Talene slowly falling down these formations. Right here, of course, is Polina. There's Cassius. Ezio Insta-Kill was used for a minute in Treasure Scramble. It seems like right now it's going down the list. And then we continue into the C class. These are the heroes exclusively kind of fodder, but still can be used within the tower, their respective towers, just kind of as a little bit of fodder. And then, of course, looking at the D tier, which is the absolute bottom tier in here, these are heroes that are not really used for anything. And unfortunately, they've been kind of phased out. Even a lot of the C tier, it is about the power creep. Even when we were looking at Rando compared to the last Greyborn hero, it started about I think it was 2 or 3K higher. So every single hero that comes in future releases, if you paid attention, if you looked at what's going on with the heroes, you will see that they get stronger and stronger and stronger. And that is by design. That is by AFK Arena's design. As the new heroes come out, they do come out with a higher combat rating, which means when you build out the heroes, the amplification factor of that combat rating is much higher as the new heroes are released, which again, making Randall the most powerful, the strongest combat rating start that we see of a hero short of the Awakened heroes. So it's pretty interesting to see exactly where they're coming. But all right, guys, so that is going to do it for our October tier list. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the changes. And as always, thank you guys for watching.